Welcome to the Supply Chain and Logistics Spotlight. My name is Hans Thalbauer. I'm the Managing Director of the Logistics and Supply Chain Industry Solutions at Google Cloud. Today we talk about the future of supply chain with Google Cloud. Of course, we need to talk about the themes which impact supply chains. And we all know health crisis has impacted supply chain quite significantly. Think about the pandemic, shutting down the manufacturing plants, shutting down ports, having delays in shipment processes. Another aspect which typically is not being discussed as much is that there were a lot of additional demands created by the stimulus packages which have been introduced by governments around the world. This is very significant because this was really driving the demand increase the last 2 years. And this was a challenge also for companies to really fulfill to this demand. Hand in hand with the pandemic was also a shift of the consumer demand and also the way how consumers shop and in towards the e-commerce business, right? So e-commerce was rising, and we also predict that e-commerce will continue to rise going forward. People got used to the shipping processes. But there's another challenge involved in that. Actually, there's a labor shortage. Truck drivers are missing. Truck drivers are missing not only in Japan, but also in the US, in Europe. Around the world, you find the same issue. And the labor shortage also gets to an additional challenge and disrupts the supply chain. Then we have, of course, a climate crisis, right? So the climate crisis, especially with an example in Taiwan, where a drought was going on the last year, and you all remember the semiconductor crisis. In Taiwan, we have many semiconductor companies. They were asked to reduce the capacity due to the drought. So in addition to the increased demand on microchips, we also saw that the companies couldn't really produce to the maximum capacity. This is only one example. Climate crisis has many aspects, and there are many storms and hurricanes and typhoons around the world which severely disrupt the supply chain. Then you see geopolitical issues, right? We need to mention Ukraine-Russia crisis right now, but there are many more which impact the supply chain and really have another and create another challenge for the world economy. And then you have also an energy crisis. So the change and the transition from fossil energy to renewable energy. But very important, there's an increased demand in energy. And we see actually certain parts of the world shutting down energy for a certain time. And this, again, leads to disruptions in the supply chain because manufacturing plants and ports are closed. Right? So big challenges which need to be solved and every single day by supply chain professionals. And the thing is, it's not just a short-term issue. We actually think it's rather a long-term and systemic issue. There's a big question which is out there. How will global trade change? Is it actually really transforming and translating into something new? Will the global trade and the global economy continue to work as is? And there are certain assumptions. There are actually already quite a number of companies thinking of shifting from a global supply chain model to more a regional-based supply chain model. And I would even argue we're living in a post-outsourcing world. Post-outsourcing means you're not going to China anymore for cheap labor and outsource manufacturing. You're going to China in order to sell your products in this country, right? Because of the increased demand. All of these signals we see there, and this implies that there is truly a shift more to regional and more to local productions, which of course reduces the risk, which of course has an impact on sustainability and also allows to faster delivery processes. But we also believe components and commodities will be global and will be shipped actually around the world in order to fulfill demands. All of that tells us the only way in order to really manage supply chains effectively is by a shift to a data-driven supply chain. We need to create visibility, flexibility, and innovation in order to deal with this supply chain and deal with all these disruptions which are going on. Data-driven means that we not only focus on the enterprise data. This is the traditional view. Companies focus on the orders, forecasts, and inventory. But typically, they ignore the rest of the world when they create actually the supply chain plans. So we need to bring in the public information, the traffic, the weather, the climate, the financial risk, all these type of information which is out there, which describes what's going on in the world. We need to connect that with the enterprise data. And we need to actually enable community data, which means we need to enable the collaboration between the business partners. Supply networks are not only between the OEM and the first-tier suppliers. You need to understand who is your second-tier, your third-tier supplier. You need to be able to also collaborate with these companies so that you run your supply chain more smoothly. So big topic, data across the end-to-end supply chain by connecting the enterprise data, the public data, and the community data. Google Cloud has introduced a vision of leveraging intelligence to create a transparent and sustainable supply chain for everyone. So clear focus on exactly this topic of data and intelligence. How do we do that? We have introduced a strategy already last year, which has 4 pillars. Supply Chain Twin, which is a digital representation of the physical supply chain, with this concept of describing the enterprise data, so the private data, the community data, so the collaboration, and the public data, bringing that together to one semantic model, and then representing this information so that analytical tools done with the supply chain pulse can really access this information to provide the visibility, to derive the KPIs, to analyze information. We also work on supply chain simulations with specific AI ML algorithms. Is it the forecasting AI or the fleet routing AI, which has been introduced just recently and is being discussed in this event? And we are not creating applications, so we are working with supply chain partners. We work with supply chain partners on the application side. Is it an SAP or an O9, a Manhattan, and. But we also work with data providers, right? So data is such an important topic. We want to work with the Dun & Bradstreets. We want to work with Kraft, Crux, the Climate Engine, and, right? So with many partners in order to provide the broad view into the supply chain. And of course, we're working with system integrators, right? In order to enable companies to adopt these solutions easily and fast. We have introduced this supply chain platform last year. We saw actually broad adoption from companies across all industries. J.B. Hunt is working to create the most efficient transportation network in North America using Google Cloud solutions. So a company like CN Rail partner with Google Cloud to modernize railway services and deliver enhanced customer experiences. We see Carrefour leverages Google Cloud's demand forecasting to predict demand, placing the right products in front of the right shoppers. We see the Home Depot avoid stock out and increases sales by running SAP on Google Cloud with real-time analytics. Unilever, another example, and Google Cloud team up to reimagine the future of supply chain sourcing. So super exciting scenarios with companies across all industries. They leverage data in order to drive to new processes and really do a digital transformation with this type of analytics and data-driven supply chain approach. Like I said before, we are doing that not alone as Google Cloud. We are working with a broad ecosystem with data partners, with application partners, and with system integrators. We are so grateful for these partners to work with them to enable our customers to be most successful and really enable a data-driven supply chain for the future. So thank you very much and enjoy the event.